How do you know what parts are the ones that are legit and what aren't? What epistemic criteria?
The Quran is the guardian. It says it's the Muhammad.
Okay, but how do you know that the Quran contains the correct, perfect number of the surahs?
Right. So right now we don't see anywhere. Show me in any single Islamic institution the existing of a different amount of surahs that the Muslims are reciting. It doesn't exist.
Well, the fact that that's an argument from silence, I'm just asking you what epistemic principle you have that you know, and your argument is that an argument from silence because no Islamic institutes have said there's
No, I'm saying this. It doesn't require any faith in any historian. Just look at
Then why are you citing them?
No, I'm not citing. Actually, God is my witness. I didn't read no historian. These are all arguments I came up with that. No, whoa. Why are you citing historians? You just said, why are you citing historians? Now you're just telling me that you can tell I don't read historians. So you're just trying to do this little psychological tactic in a debate. Okay.
It's a joke.
Yeah, you're trying to abandon it now. You were trying to do this little psychological
I'm going to go back to the argument because you're not answering it.
Okay, we can go back to the argument. That doesn't matter. My point is this. You can look around and see the state of the Bible today. Protestants have different, Catholics, Orthodox. But then
just look around and see the Bible.
Independently. You don't have to assume a
Do you understand if you can make a fallacy, I can too. So can I just say, just look around at the scholarship of the atheists that doubt the Quran.
No. I'm saying, okay, prove my observation wrong here. When I look at every single Islamic
I have to
sect,
prove your observation wrong.
No.
How is that
Contradict
an argument?
Contradict it. Show me where I'm seeing things that are wrong. Okay,
you understand that in a debate,
okay,
I can do that exact same thing?
Do it. No problem. The floor is yours.
Okay, prove my argument's wrong. Prove my observation's wrong.
That's what I'm showing you right now. The Quran.
I'm showing you why that's not an argument.
The Quran has a unique level of preservation.
You asserting the position in question doesn't make it true.
Okay. Can you show me any Islamic sect around that reads a different register of surahs and verses than the one that is in mass circulation?
Well, how about all of the Islamic sects that are 99% of Islam that say you're completely a heretic?
That is a total... We can deal with that. I can deal with why I reject hadith afterwards, but... Can you answer?
But I'm saying that they all say that you don't even have a correct understanding of the Quran without the hadith.
I can deal with that, no problem. But I want to answer this point directly. Can you show me any Qurans in circulation today that has a different surah and verse?
But that's an argument from silence because if Uthman burned all of the variants and there are no more variants, that just assumes the thing in question that there are no variants because today there's not any Islamic scholars that doubt it. By the way, I think there probably are Islamic scholars that doubt it because there's probably liberal Islamic scholars. So again, what's the measure that tells me the Islamic scholar that I look to? Because you believe that 99% of the Islamic scholars who are not Quran only are also liberal or some form of a corrupted heretic. Why should I listen to them?
I believe that the corruptions and the distortions that have entered in the religion of Islam is not Quranic. It comes from hadith and tafsir.
I know.
That's the problem.
So why would you listen to them telling you about the Quran?
I'm not listening to them. I literally...
You just cited the Islamic scholars.
No.
You did. What do you mean?
This is an independent empirical observation. Go to a Shia mosque, go to a Sunni mosque, go to a Quran, go to anywhere.
Why am I supposed to listen to heretics?
I'm saying there is no other Quran that exists.
But why am I supposed to believe that's true based on your epistemic principle?
You don't have to listen to heretics. Go find a different Quran.
But you're telling me to listen to heretics.
Go find a different Quran. Can you produce?
You're not understanding the argument.
I can bring for you multiple Bibles with multiple different books. Can you do the same with Quran?
You're not telling me what the epistemic principle is to know that. You just keep asserting the position, and I'm saying, but that doesn't tell me how I know that that's correct because this group agrees with me. Well, I could find all kinds of people that agree with me, and that's just an appeal to consensus or an appeal to authority fallacy.
I genuinely don't think you're understanding my point.
How is it not an appeal to consensus / authority fallacy?
I'm saying that you can see this with your eyes. I don't need to appeal.
You think reality is reality, bro. This is T-Jump part 2.
Listen. My argument.
I'll T-Jump us. Muhammad I'll T-Jump.
My argument is not because the Sunnis or this scholar said it, therefore it's true. I'm saying I cannot find a different Quran out there.
That's an argument from silence, which is a fallacy.
Explain to me exactly how it's a fallacy. Where did my logic misstep?
There's a fallacy called the argument from silence, which is if I were to say, I can't find any Orthodox Christians that actually really refute my position, so our Orthodox Christianity is true. Guys, know you buy that?
Well, I'm challenging you to prove me wrong. Find me.
I don't have to because it's a bad argument.
So the point is this. What I'm trying to highlight here is that somehow, some way, history and God who guides history. We believe God is in control of all things. God who guided history has afforded the Quran a unique level of preservation not afforded to
Did he
any
not
world
preserve
scripture.
the Torah?
No.
So all his words can be changed?
No. Read the verse. Bring up the exact verse to me. We'll go through it together.
Well, I mean, did Jesus have a Torah that he looked to?
God taught him the Torah.
Which is what? Not the Torah that he had.
God taught him the
Is
Torah.
it what he had in his hands?
God taught the Torah to him.
Is it what he had in his hands?
He came to confirm. When the Quran talks about previous scriptures, it is not affirming any anonymous texts that are in your possession today, like your what's called the Torah today, like your Gospels. It is affirming a legacy of prophets. So the Quran is saying, hey, you guys had Jesus.
What Torah did Jesus have?
Jesus had, there was probably a different Torah at the time of the day.
But you don't know, probably.
Yeah.
Probably, so you don't know. So another argument from silence?
Right. So okay, can I say one thing?
I'm going to make arguments from silence.
Can I say one thing? Listen.
There is no scholars who refuted me. Show me one.
No, I don't
Show me one.
I don't.
Show me a scholar that's refuted me. There's not one, so we're good, dude.
I don't have answers to every single last historical question.
But you haven't given any answers.
No. So
try one. Just
this
one.
Is true.
Just try one.
This is true. A lot of what we accept about ancient history undoubtedly is a matter of faith. It is. For example, you believe in the story of Samson.
Why am I
I'm just giving an example here. You believe in the story of Samson that there was a guy who slayed 1,000 Philistines with a donkey's jawbone, right? You believe in that story. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you believe in that because you empirically verified it yourself, or you accept the testimony of Scripture based on faith?
Well, I actually have arguments that back up why I believe it, and they're not arguments based on fallacies of argument of silence.
Right. No, so you believe that. Did you empirically go and verify that?
Did you hear me make an argument from silence?
Explain that to me. What do you even say?
Again,
you're acting. You're like this punkish thing, like argument from silence, fallacy.
Yeah, but
How about
I'm sorry if you're not aware of
carefully?
that, but that's actually the way a debate works. Is that when people make bad chess moves, you call it out and you say you can't make that move. So it's not my fault that you didn't learn the fallacies before coming to the debate. That's on you. But again, what's the argument here? That because I just see it?
No,
just empirically see it.
I'm trying to establish a point with you that much of what we accept on ancient history is a matter of faith. But we need to see why we have faith in a specific testimony or the other. Why do we have faith in the Bible or the Quran or a specific scholar or whatever?
Right.
We start impugning and verifying.
Right, and I keep looking for the principle that you have that tells you when you know something is false religious teaching, when you know that it's true religious teaching. And I gave you many examples, and I even said he's going to do everything in the Bible, or excuse me, everything in the Quran is self-authenticating and self-interpreting. So I challenge the epistemic principle, and your solutions that you've offered are all not answers to the epistemic question. How do I know what is the correct interpretation of the Quran versus the false when we look at the Old Testament, for example? And you said, well, you just look with your eyes. But people can misinterpret because you believe that 99% of the Islamic world has misinterpreted the Quran, correct?
Yeah, they have misinterpreted through their hadith-based lens. The Quran is very clear and easy to understand.
Well, then why has all of Islam been so corrupted for so many years?
Hadith.
But why did they fall into this corruption when the Quran was so clear?
Because most people...
Were they not looking with their eyes?
Because most people, they're misguided. Most people don't follow God. Most people have a disease in their heart.
That's just telling me your position. I'm asking you, why am I supposed to accept that?
Accept what?
Why should I accept your 1% sect of Islam when all the rest of the scholars don't even... The very scholars you appeal to think that you don't even have the basics.
So basically, why should you accept my Quran alone, hadith rejection?
Yeah, what's the good argument for your epistemic principle?
Chapter 45, verse 6. Go right there.
The Quran is the thing in question. So I want to know what the right measure is to know that I'm supposed to accept that you have the correct number.
You asked
What's
me,
the correct number of surahs?
You asked me. The correct number of surahs is the only number of surahs that I've seen in existence around the world. Okay. 114.
But why? Because there's not a different position. How do I know that Uthman chose the correct number of surahs?
I'm saying the course of history has shown the Quran to clearly.
How do I know that saying course of history because it happened is therefore true?
Prove
it happened?
Prove my statement.
You're asking
wrong.
me to prove.
Pull up a Quran.
That's an argument from silence, don't you?
Because you can't.
That's a fallacy.
Because I can bring you 3 different Bibles with 3 different numbers of books. You cannot do that with the Quran.
You understand that your answer, if you can say that in a debate, I can just say the exact same thing back to you, and it doesn't work. That's why it's a fallacy. It's an argument from silence.
Reformulate that argument back to me so I can.
That's like me saying, prove my entire position is false. You can't.
No, I'm not saying that.
That's literally what you said. You just said.
No.
You said prove it wrong.
No. Okay, I'm saying this. It's like saying, okay, this is an empirical thing. If there were...
I'm challenging that.
If there were another Quran out there, we could be able to bring it forth.
It doesn't matter if there's another Quran out there, because if I reject the entire history of Islamic preservation narrative, or even if I agree that it's preserved, error can be preserved. That doesn't tell me that it is the right number of surahs because it exists with these number of surahs. Thus, you're just begging the question.
Okay, so do you not find it at the very least interesting that the Quran, which is the fake book, it's not the true word of God, that we cannot find any different versions of it.
I find the Lord of the Rings interesting, but that has nothing to do with whether it's true. So
come on,
these are bad arguments.
Question. Okay,
no, that's actually illustrating the absurdity of your argument.
No. Is that not something interesting to you? The fake book has been afforded more preservation than the real book, which is the authentic revelation of God.
Mystery science theater is interesting, but what does that have to do with anything?
So that's not even okay. Fine. The fact that the fake book has more preservation, this is not...
You haven't demonstrated that it's a fake book.
This is not noteworthy of consideration. You're not arguing in good faith.
You're not understanding the epistemic level.
You're not arguing. You're doing this performative thing. You're peacocking.
Do you understand what an epistemic argument is?
I'm trying to have a genuine discussion and get to the heart of the matter. You're not trying to do that.
You look like you're about to do a rap battle, bro.
I can see that. I can see that.
Do you know what epistemology is?
I know about that.
What is it?
How we justify knowledge.
Right. So I'm asking you in good faith. I'm just illustrating it with jokes. The answers, why they're not good. I'm trying to figure out what's the epistemic principle that I'm supposed to rely on to know that the correct number of surahs is in the book.
Find another Quran that has...
That is not a valid argument, and I've explained 10 times why. Do you understand why?
No, explain it to me. It seems very sensible to me.
It's an argument from silence, because the fact that even if it's the case, and I don't even know if it is the case, that all of today's existing Qurans only have that number of surahs, that doesn't tell me that Uthman was correct in his decision.
Okay, so overall, I'm seeing this. Again, when I look around, I cannot okay, fine.
Just saying to look around and it's clear is a really bad argument.
I can't disprove it. I can't disprove it. I have tried might and main to disprove the veracity and the integrity of the Quran, and I couldn't disprove it.
This is an argument again. The fact that you haven't done your homework or have done your homework has nothing to do with whether that's an argument in a debate. So I'm supposed to accept that the Quran has the correct number of surahs because you didn't disprove it.
Find a different text out there than the one that exists in even Muslims who kill each other, who are fighting each other. They all have the same Quran. Their hadith is different.
People kill themselves the wrong way. What does that have to do with it? This has nothing to do with this being true.
My point is this, okay. A text as significant as the Quran, which many people have laid claim to, if there was an ability to edit it, people would have. You know what? Everything else is different in the different Muslim sects. Their interpretation, their scholarly commentary, their hadith. Every text they have is different except for the Quran.
It's an argument from
silence. It is a marvel of history.
It
is unique amongst the world's scriptures.
Again, you can reassert your position 100 times over. Okay, None of those things actually get you to epistemic justification for the good reasons I'm supposed to have to accept the Quran. So you understand, every time you answer and you say, I can't find another example, well, have you read all of the books?
Every Quran that I have seen has been the exact same.
Are you limited in your empirical investigation?
You want to know what's interesting? You want to know what's interesting? There's one guy in the world who tried to actually edit the number of verses in the Quran. He's an alleged Quran aloner by the name of Rashad Khalifa. He tried to take out 2 verses of the Quran, the last 2 verses of chapter 9, and he even included them in his translation, but then he put a little commentary saying they're not from God. But then you know what happened to him? He got stabbed to death in his mosque. That's what happens when
that just tells me that your religion isn't violent and insane and doesn't actually have... They can't actually argue the position.
So anybody...
I'm not sure why that's a strong... thank you for arguing for my position.
I'm saying this. Anyone who tries to mess with the Quran is going to get in big trouble. Anyone. Because God's divine protection is over it. But not the Bible. Not the Bible.
Okay, so, I mean, these are strong arguments right here.
Incredible arguments, yeah.
So, again, I mean, if you understand what an argument from silence is and why it's a fallacy, the fact that you haven't found another Quran or that there's not another person pushing a Quran and one dude one time got stabbed, I just don't understand why that is a justification for why I ought to accept Quran onlyism.
Okay, I got a question for you then.
So this is a two-quote quiz. So
no. So your argument from silence. You're going to say I'm doing an argument from silence. Do you believe in transgenderism, that men can become women and women can become men?
No.
Why? Why?
For many reasons. It's biologically, logically, philosophically, it's impossible.
Why? Why is it? By the way, I don't obviously believe in transgenderism. I'm just trying to test your logic. Here. Why?
Because it's, again, fundamentally impossible.
How?
How is it impossible?
Well, you've never seen a man turn into a woman or a woman turn into a man, right? That's what I would say to somebody. I've never seen that happen in my life.
Yeah, but you made an argument.
Yeah, and I could just say, hey, it's an argument for silence.
You made an argument.
It's an argument for silence.
No,
you never proved.
That's not. No, it's a two different types of things. So this is an apple-orange fallacy because you're comparing something that is a logical fallacy with something that is literally an empirical observation that you can never know. You can never know.
I'm literally talking about empirical observations. The empirical observation. The empirical observation, a man cannot become a woman, and the empirical observation that there is no other 114 surahs, Qurans out there.
The difference is that it's logically impossible for a man to become a woman. It is not logically impossible to say that because you've never seen a Quran with different surahs, that's how you know the Quran has the correct surahs.
So by that very same logic, it would not be a sound argument to say, hey, I don't believe men can become women and women can become men because I've never seen it in my life. I've never seen a single example. Is that a fair argument?
One is a logical impossibility, and the other one is an argument based on empiricism that makes a leap that is a non sequitur leap. You can't say that the Quran is true because I've never seen a different collection of surahs. It doesn't follow.
I just want to know: is that a fair argument? Let's say let's say your son let's say you had a son. Let's say you had a son who had.
How can you logically demonstrate that because you haven't seen a different Quran with a different list or number of surahs, that tells you that today's Quran is the correct number?
I see that this religious scripture is unique. So, okay, right.
All kinds of things. I'm unique.
Okay,
I am unique in this world. I am a man. I am me. I understand, am unique, bro.
I understand what you're saying.
Those are not good arguments.
I understand what you're saying, right? So, okay, fine. There's no way for me to empirically prove right now that 1,000 years ago somebody didn't mess with the Quran and somehow it's standardized. I can't prove that.
Not good arguments.
Right. But the fact that there is no other Quran in circulation today, I have faith in the testimony of the Quran when it says it's preserved because I see evidence of it. You can't prove it. You can't prove tomorrow your wife won't cheat on you. You can't prove that somebody's not going to come out of this audience and just jump on the stage and start dancing. You can't prove any of these things, but you can have a reasonable level of faith. Anyways, you can't prove it. You can't prove any of these things, but you can have a reasonable faith beyond any.
Is it logically
doubt.
Impossible that I could dance on stage?
I said somebody from the audience coming up and dancing.
Anybody. Is it logically impossible?
Okay, let's use a different example. All right, I'm just making up an example on the spot.
No, I'm just saying.
Okay, that's somebody in the audience.
I'm going with your example.
Okay.
It's a fine example.
Wait. Somebody in the audience is going to come up on the stage and start doing a handstand or do a quadruple backflip. Now, we don't know. Somebody could come up and do that, but we can have a reasonable level of faith to say that's probably not going to happen. It's the same thing with the Quran.
Right.
1,000 years ago, maybe somebody messed with it. Maybe. Who knows? But I have faith in what it says because I can see there's no different ones in circulation. That's my point.
Right, but the question was about the epistemic justification for the criteria for what you know is the thing that tells you that the Quran has the correct list of surahs. So when you say that, well, ultimately it's just my faith that it's been preserved,
I didn't just say that, but okay, go ahead. I didn't say it's my faith. I say I have faith that it wasn't messed up 1,000 years ago and sometime I didn't know, but that faith is based on a truckload of empirical evidence.
But you're missing the point, which is that empirical evidence and data, by its very nature, is limited. So it can only get you so far in discussions. And the question that I'm asking you is more of a fundamental sort of paradigm kind of question.
Epistemological?
Yeah, so I'm asking then what's the epistemic criteria? And if you appeal to empirical sense data again, you're back in the loop because this is a question that's about the principle itself.
I see. Okay, so you and I fundamentally have a different epistemology.
Yes.
I believe that so long as I am not drunk or I am not high, or that my senses are generally reliable for determining and intuiting the world around me. Do you share that epistemological assumption with me or no?
I do believe that the senses are generally reliable, but they don't function to prove these types of abstract sort of paradigm level questions by the very nature of the question.
You can't prove abstract level, paradigm level questions. At some point,
do you know that?
when you're talking about these types of broad things, did something happen thousands and thousands of years ago? Did somebody mess with the Quran and then it ended up getting standard? Nobody can prove or disprove.
Well, that's your assumption. You're assuming that people can't
at
prove
the end of the day,
how do you know that?
You choose. Okay, well, show it to me.
Well, I mean, that gets into transcendental argumentation and presuppositional argumentation, but that's a different type of topic than what we're debating. But again, my point in the opening statement, I already said he's going to appeal to the text as being self-evident and clear, and I'm going to call that into question because none of the text is going to tell me how he knows that the correct number of surahs was put into the Quran in the days of Uthman. And so ultimately his justification was... well, I have faith in that, and there's some evidences that there's no Qurans that exist without other numbers of surahs. But if Uthman limited what would go into it in his day, then what does that doesn't prove anything except the thing in question, right?
Hadith rumors don't mean anything to me at all. Hadith rumors don't mean anything to me. But
that's even worse for you because how do you know? So if it's not the Uthman story, then how do you know you have the right? Because that's the earliest record of what, decades later.
The course of history has shown an incredible level of preservation.
That's a fallacy.
That's it.
To just appeal to a generic course of history as
to appeal to history is a fallacy?
To prove an epistemic position, yes.
How so?
How can just saying history proves my epistemic principle?
I'm saying that history shows really good evidence to believe the Quran is preserved.
How does history prove the epistemic principle?
We're kind of going in circles. We're kind of going in circles here. Now, do you have any questions for me that you want to ask?
That'd be like saying that, again, would you accept if I said the Bible just is true because I have faith in it and there's evidences and my epistemic principle is the Bible itself because it's clear? You would not accept that.
There are independent ways of verifying whether that faith is well placed or not.
And I'm challenging.
So I would ask that question to you. Why do you genuinely believe the Bible is the Word of God? I actually want to know.
There's many reasons. There are philosophical reasons. There are textual reasons, historical reasons. All of those things can play into my worldview. But I didn't hinge my argument on a empirical justification for a non-empirical principle.
Okay, so
let me ask. So does history? When you say, I look at history in the course of history, how does history tell you that you have the correct epistemic principle for the Quran? That's the disconnect.
How does history tell me I have the correct epistemic principle for the Quran? Mm-hmm. I read the Quran. The Quran says, thank you for not done my sentence. I read the Quran, and then it says it's preserved. I don't just accept it based on that. It says it's preserved. Then I look around. Can I dispute that in any way? No, I can't. But every other text I can.
So
that's very interesting.
To repeat the very things that we called into question 40 minutes ago.
Okay, so we're not going to get anywhere with this point. I want to genuinely, what is, when I say, why do you believe the Bible is the Word of God, what's the first thing that came to your mind, like the big one? I want to know.
The first argument, because we're at the point of sort of philosophical questions, would be transcendental argumentation. So I think the Trinity is proven by the transcendental argument. But I didn't want to go in that because it's not on the topic.
Okay, well, could you run me through it quickly?
Okay, sure. As we've illustrated in this discussion so far, I think that when you have an empirical-based approach to theology and religion, you get sort of stuck in epistemic types of questions that beg the question when you try to explain why people ought to believe your view of this or that religious text. So I'm just playing a Humean skeptic and using Hume's arguments against why those things don't count as justification. I'm not a Humean, but I'm saying that it's a paradigm level question because You haven't questioned your assumptions about why you believe the Quran. All I'm doing is giving arguments. And by the way, you notice you used liberal textual scholars about the Bible, so hopefully you don't have a problem with me using liberal atheistic skeptic arguments about
no. Let me make it clear. I've not read these liberal scholars. I'm not interested in using them because I understand
your opening statement was full of those types of arguments.
I don't agree with.
So you did get it from ChatGPT because you didn't read them.
No. I got it from my own experience with reading the Bible.
So your own experience taught you the liberal hierarchical arguments?
For years and years. I don't hang it based on the authority of these liberal scholars. I don't agree with what these Sunnis do. They don't argue in good faith when they're going to quote a liberal scholar on his authority, and then the same guys will say things against the Quran. I'm saying from independent verification, I read the Bible cover to cover, and I had no clear idea what the message is. What is the Bible even about?
That's just
what is it even about?
That's another fallacy, a psychological report that it wasn't clear to you. So that sounds like more of a you problem than an actual argument.
Okay, oh really? So
I read the Quran. It doesn't make sense.
Okay.
Would you accept me saying that?
Right. Okay. What about it didn't make sense to you? I genuinely want to know.
No,
I can tell you exactly what didn't make sense to me about the Bible.
I'm illustrating why that's not a good argument, man.
Yeah. Listen, okay. Not that you guys are going to care anyways, but I wanted to be a Christian for a very long time. I really, really did. 100% I take my Lord as a witness, but I couldn't because I cannot face God on the day of judgment. I read the Bible and I read the Quran, and I'm like, I cannot deny this as scripture. Very clearly, this is continuing the religion of Moses and Jesus. Because ultimately, this Islamic and Christian debate, it boils down to who was the inspired writer? Was it Muhammad or was it Paul? That's really what if it's Paul, then it's Christian.
Well, but Muhammad didn't write, right?
You know what I mean. Okay.
Well, no, I don't, because this is actually a problem for your position.
Let me restate.
He didn't actually write anything because he's illiterate, but he wrote this down, right?
You're picking up my word.
It's
the
a joke,
epistles.
dude.
The epistles.
It's a debate. You would pick apart my words.
Okay. The epistles or the Quran, which texts are divinely revealed and inspired? That's really what the debate boils down to. If the epistles are divinely revealed, Christians are correct. Mm-hmm. If the Quran is divinely revealed, then epistles are wrong, Christians are wrong. Mm-hmm. And now, actually, I genuinely want to know, on what basis do you accept the epistles of Paul as a continuation of the religion of Moses and Jesus and not the Quran?
I mean, I think it's the only way to interpret the religion of the Old Testament is with the fulfillment of Christianity. So I see it through the lens, just like, and you understand this concept with the lens because you critique the Hadith people, right?
Okay.
You believe the Hadith people misinterpret the Quran through the lens of Hadith,
yes,
right?
Yes.
So in our position, we admit that, yes, we have a lens of the New Testament and of, the teaching of the church as the lens for the Old Testament, but we don't think that's inconsistent because everybody has a lens that they're going to read all the text through. So just saying that we have this lens or highlighting it is not, it's everybody has the same thing. That's what I'm hitting at.
You took it over the hills and far away. I want to know, on what basis do you accept the epistles as a continuation of the religion of Moses?
I told you because my presuppositional commitments as an Orthodox Christian are to read the Old and New Testament in a harmonious way, not just because I chose it, but because I was eventually convinced of it over many years of reading both of those.
Okay, but I mean, anybody can do that with anything. You can take two texts.
Well, that's why this isn't really relevant to the debate.
Force harmony on anything. So, okay, I
didn't say
when disharmony exists, you can pretend that harmony is there, but disharmony exists. You're gonna have to either choose one or the other. That's what Christians do. They mainly side with the Gospel of John and Paul in neglect of the rest of the Old Testament.
You assume that. That's not the Orthodox. No, it's not. That's not the Orthodox approach to the text. We don't take only Paul in the Gospels or something like that. We constantly always read all of the Bible. In fact, in the Orthodox liturgy, you are cycling through the entire biblical text throughout the liturgical year. So completely not true. I don't know. And what would that have to do with anything anyway in terms of proving which one's correct or not? You haven't demonstrated when I responded to all of your challenges that there is actually this discontinuity, because I give you many examples showing continuity. So you have an assumption of discontinuity, and every time I give a proof of continuity, you're just simply going to say, no, I don't believe that. You're just forcing it onto the text or whatever. That's why the debate is actually a commitment to two different paradigms. That's why I'm critiquing the assumption of your paradigm, which I'm happy to answer. Again, messianic prophecies. There's dozens and dozens and dozens of messianic prophecies. I'll give you an example. The Jews themselves, when they go to all of the messianic passages that they believe are about the Messiah, now they obviously don't think it's Jesus, but they admit that most of these passages that Orthodox Christians also believe are messianic prophecies. We agree on many of them being messianic. We don't agree who it is, but what I'm saying is that shows us that there is a widespread bunch of messianic prophecies in the Old Testament. Isaiah, as an example, has dozens of instances. I would say maybe, I'm going to just guess, maybe 24, a couple dozen instances of passages and chapters that discuss that when the Messiah comes, one of those signs would be Gentile nations converting to the God of Israel. The reason that's a powerful example of a prophetic demonstration is because in Isaiah's day, when Israelites were being carried into Babylonian captivity, it would have seemed impossible to Israelites, to Jews, to think, how will all of these wicked Gentiles all around us, how would they ever convert to worshiping Yahweh? That's insane. And in the tradition of both Jews and Christians, I think it's the Jewish tradition as well, Isaiah was killed for this and for other things he said, like in Isaiah 6, where he says he saw Yahweh, because the Jews were saying, apparently you can't do that. Yet it's still in Isaiah 6. We think that's about Christ. But regardless, this is an example of many instances that one of the signs of the Messiah would be Gentiles converting and worshiping the God of Yahweh, or the God Yahweh, the God of Israelites. Lo and behold, in the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th century, the Roman Empire begins to be permeated with, and for the last 2,000 years, millions and millions and millions of Gentiles throughout the world have worshiped and called upon the name of the God of Israel.
Okay, so I don't necessarily have a problem with messianic prophecies. I believe that Jesus is the Messiah. But what I'm trying to get at here is this. I've seen a lot of these messianic prophecies. I'm not very convinced. I think Christians misapply them. But either way, my point is this. When we're talking about this Son of God, God-man being tortured and killed for my sins, and this blood washing away my sins, is this a native religion to the Old Testament? Is it
a native religion to the Old Testament?
Is it native and indigenous to the Old Testament? Sure. And if not...
Sure. For example. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, sorry. Go
For
ahead,
example,
okay.
If you go back to Abraham, in Genesis we read that Abraham built an altar and called upon the name of Yahweh. When we get to Moses, we read that Moses instituted a temple with an altar to call upon Yahweh. We are told later on that there will be a time when there will be an altar, this is what Isaiah says in one of his prophecies, set up in Egypt, and Syria and Egypt and Israel will all have an altar where they call upon Yahweh. We read later on in Isaiah, towards the end of it, that there will be Gentile priests calling upon Yahweh. But this would mystify and blow the minds of the Jews at that time, because how could there be a Gentile priest, right? But for believing Jews, they understood and knew that when the Messiah comes, there will be an opening up of the covenant, and we will begin to see the Syrians and the Egyptians and the enemies of God's people, and this happens throughout the Roman Empire in the first 3, 4, 5, 6 centuries of Christianity, they build altars and they begin to worship Yahweh in the type of Eucharistic worship that Jesus describes in the Last Supper. So those are examples of the continuation. The Eucharist is the fulfillment of those blood sacrifices. It puts an end to all of those because we are participating in the worship of God and in his own uncreated energies in our perspective. So I'm just giving another example of how in Isaiah you have predictions of altars and priests amongst Gentiles, which would, again, be crazy to many of the Old Testament unbelieving Jews. They would think that's insane. That's not possible. And yet, when the Messiah comes, even if you reject it, you have, for example, in the Gospel of John, when I'm raised up, all nations will look to me. Mary says in her Magnificat, the prophecy, she says, all generations will call me blessed. Even the most liberal scholar that dates that Gospel of Luke very late, you still have to admit that's a pretty crazy prophecy. How would they know, with this little tiny sect of Judaism splitting off of it, how would they know that all generations would call Mary the Theotokos, the mother of God? Those are examples of things that are not generic messianic prophecies. They're hyper-specific that have been fulfilled in multiple generations of the Roman Empire.
Okay, so the Orthodox position is that Jesus dying on the cross for our sins, that this is a ultimate continuation and fulfilling of the Old Testament rites of sacrifice.
Correct.
Okay. So now, can you show me anywhere? I have a hard time accepting that, and the reason for that is, can you show me anywhere in the Old Testament where a sacrifice was done? Okay, so when we go to the Old Testament, sacrifices were done with a priest who washed, who put on the holy garments, and he was in the most sanctified state, and then he would take an animal, then he would slay it simply, and then that would be it. Can you show me how this idea of Jesus, pagan Roman savages taking this human and spitting on him, torturing him, flaying him, that this is at all a continuation of the Old Testament model of holy sacrifice? How in the world is that?
Because of all the prophecies that he would die on a tree, that he would be humiliated, that he would undergo death, Isaiah 53. I mean, the suffering servant passages that, for example, the Jews, let's give an example of Jews. Jews believe in two different messiahs. They believe, because of the Talmud, right? Because there are these passages that speak of Messiah undergoing suffering and death, and there's also passages of a reigning, conquering Messiah. So Talmudic Jews have the idea of Messiah ben Joseph and Messiah ben David. That's their way to explain around the passages that seem to be a problem with, on the one hand, Messiah has all of these death, burial, resurrection motifs. Let me give an example in the book of Psalms. Many, many times throughout the Psalms, David describes this life, persecution, death, descent into Hades, and then resurrection motif. It's in dozens of the Psalms, right? The New Testament sets the pattern for us. This is our paradigm for interpreting those Psalms, because of the many places, for example, where Paul and Jesus cite those Psalms about Jesus. Those are predictions of the life, death, burial, resurrection, and ascension of Christ. Again, Psalm 110 is a great example. It's the most cited Psalm in the New Testament. So, point being, Jesus is not just a conquering, Judaic king like they wanted in terms of the Zealots at the time of Christ. They wanted the Davidic kingdom to be set up, overthrow the Roman, dominance that they had. Jesus came and said, that's for later. But for right now, many things have to be fulfilled that have not yet been fulfilled, such as all of these dozens of passages back to Genesis 12, 15, 17, 22 with Abraham, of all of the nations being opened up to the covenant to come in. That's what Luke 21 says. Jesus says, you will see all the Gentiles coming in. And he says in Matthew 21, 43, he says, the Jews, the original sons of the kingdom, will be tossed out because they rejected me. This is the whole parable of the landowner. So Jesus is the servant who's rejected, but he's also the Messiah, because it's a suffering servant and a Messiah. It's both of those things. So the Romans unknowingly fulfilled the prophecies by crucifying him, and then he resurrects to destroy their power. And that's why within 3 centuries, how was Rome destroyed? Not through wars and swords like the Zealots wanted. Rome was destroyed, as Daniel 2 predicted, by becoming the kingdom of the Messiah, becoming Orthodox Christians.